In the days when the hills of Samaria still echoed with the footsteps of kings and the dust of war lay heavy upon the roads of Israel, there lived a man whose name seldom rang from the mouths of heralds, yet whose deeds were known in the courts of heaven. His name was Obadiah, a servant within the house of Ahab, king of Israel. Scripture remembers him with a single line that opens a door into his heart. He feared the Lord greatly, 1 Kings 18-3. These were not gentle times. Ahab, son of Omri, had taken the throne and bound his rule to Jezebel of Sidon, bringing with her the worship of Baal and Asherah. Setting altars upon the high places, raising pillars that drew the hearts of the people away from the covenant made at Sinai, 1 Kings 16:31-33. The smoke of false offerings drifted over the land, and with it came a darkness that settled upon the spirit of Israel. Prophets of the Lord were hunted, silenced, and slain, their blood crying from the soil like that of righteous men before them. Yet within the very walls of the royal house walked Obadiah, steward of the palace, keeper of its order, trusted by the king whose ways he did not share. How such a man came to serve in such a place is not written, but his life bore the mark of one raised in the fear of the Lord from his youth, 1 Kings 18:12. Perhaps he had learned the songs of David as a child heard the accounts of Moses in the sea of Joshua. And the walls that fell and carried these words like fire within his bones as he entered the courts of power. Each day he moved among servants and soldiers, hearing whispers of new decrees, prophets taken in the night, of Jezebel's fury when her will was crossed. And in his heart, a war was waged. To remain was danger. To flee was to abandon those who yet might be saved. So he stayed, not for favor, but for the work the Lord would set before him. Then came the drought. It was Elijah the Tishbite who first spoke of it, standing before Ahab and declaring that neither dew nor rain would fall, except by his word, 1 Kings 17:1. And so it was. The skies hardened like bronze. The streams dwindled to trickles, then to dry stones. Fields cracked, herds perished, and hunger crept through village and city alike. What had been whispered before now grew into open despair. The favor promised by Baal did not come. The heavens were silent. Years passed in this way, and in the third year of drought, Ahab called Obadiah to him. The king's face bore the lines of worry, and yet his pride had not faded. Together they would search the land for water, for springs and valleys where grass might yet be found, to keep the horses and mules alive, 1 Kings 18:5. The kingdom itself now depended on what could be found in forgotten places. He divided the land between them, each to walk his own path. And so Obadiah went forth alone, dust clinging to his robe, heart heavy with the burden of all he had seen. He had walked these hills many times before, but now they seemed barren, as if mourning with the people. And then, upon the road, a figure rose before him. At first, it was only a man standing still against the wind. His cloak worn, his eyes burning with a fire that years in hiding had not dimmed, Obadiah knew him at once. He fell upon his face and cried out, "Is it you, my lord Elijah?" 1 Kings 18:7. The prophet answered simply, "It is I. Go. Tell your master, Elijah is here." 1 Kings 18:8. Fear gripped Obadiah like a hand upon his throat, for he knew the danger that followed Elijah's name. Ahab had searched every nation and kingdom for him, swearing oaths that he was not hidden there, 1 Kings 18:10. To carry such a message was to place one's life upon the edge of a blade. He pleaded with Elijah, not out of doubt, but out of the weight of all he had risked before. He spoke of what he had done when Jezebel cut down the prophets of the Lord, how he had taken 100 of them and hidden them by 50s in caves, feeding them with bread and water. 1 Kings 18:4-13. These were not small acts in a land of famine. Each loaf was a danger. Each visit to the caves a step closer to discovery. Have I not been faithful? His heart seemed to cry, must this be my end? Elijah listened, unmoved by fear, yet not without understanding. He swore by the Lord of hosts, before whom he stood, that he would surely show himself to Ahab that day, 1 Kings 18:15. The word was firm, and Obadiah knew he could not turn aside, so he went. Each step back toward the king was heavy yet steady. When he found Ahab and delivered the message, the king rose at once, his anger stirred, his hope perhaps kindled that this man who troubled Israel had finally appeared, and thus the path of Obadiah led directly into one of the greatest moments Israel would ever witness. From the slopes of Carmel, where the sea wind meets the high places, Ahab gathered the people and the prophets of Baal, 450 in number, and those of Asherah, who ate at Jezebel's table. 1 Kings 18:19. Obadiah's hand may not be seen in this gathering, yet his steps had set it in motion. The hidden faith of years now stood at the threshold of open reckoning. Elijah stood before them all and cried, "How long will you limp between two sides? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him." 1 Kings 18:21. People answered nothing. Their silence was the sound of a heart divided. The contest was set. 2 altars. 2 offerings. No fire, but that which would fall from heaven. The God who answered by fire would be known as God. 1 Kings 18:23-24. From dawn until midday, the prophets of Baal cried out, leaped upon the altar, cut themselves until blood flowed, yet there was no voice, no answer, no sign. 1 Kings 18:26-29. Obadiah may have stood among the crowd, watching with a heart torn between dread and hope, knowing how much rested upon this hour. Then Elijah repaired the altar of the Lord, using 12 stones for the tribes of Israel, calling the people back to who they were meant to be. 1 Kings 18:30-32. He drenched the offering with water until it filled the trench around it, leaving no room for doubt. And when he prayed, fire fell. It consumed the offering, the wood, the stones, the dust, and the water, leaving nothing untouched. 1 Kings 18:38. The people fell on their faces and cried, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." 1 Kings 18:39. For Obadiah, this was more than victory. It was the answer to years of hidden labor, the proof that quiet faith had not been in vain. The prophets he had fed in caves, the risks he had taken in silence, were now bound to this moment when the truth blazed before all eyes. The prophets of Baal were seized and brought down to the brook Kishon, and there they fell beneath judgment. 1 Kings 18:40. And soon after, Elijah prayed again, and the heavens, long shut, gave rain. A small cloud rose like a man's hand from the sea, and then the sky grew dark with wind and rain, and the drought was broken. 1 Kings 18:41-45. Thus ended the long famine, but not the struggle within the land. For Jezebel's heart did not turn. When she heard what had happened, she swore to take Elijah's life. The prophet fled into the wilderness. Victory on Carmel did not yet bring peace to Israel. The battle for the soul of the nation would stretch on. And where was Obadiah then? Scripture grows quiet about him. His name fades from the record, yet his work does not fade from memory. But the mark of his life is clear. In a place of power that had turned against the covenant, he had chosen to serve the Lord. His story stands beside those of others who've walked unseen paths, men and women whose faith was not shouted from mountaintops, but lived out in hidden acts of mercy and courage. Without sword or fire, Obadiah had fought his battle in caves and corridors, in whispered prayers and quiet journeys through famine-stricken hills. Generations later, another voice would rise bearing the same name. The words of Obadiah, servant of the Lord, would be spoken against Edom, a nation proud in its mountain strongholds, confident that no hand could bring it low. That voice declared that pride would be brought down, that those who rejoiced over Israel's fall would face the day of the Lord themselves. Whether bound by blood or only by the meaning of the name, this later Obadiah carried forward the same spirit. A servant who stood for the Lord when nations trusted in their own strength. Thus the name itself became a witness across the years, meaning servant of the Lord, spoken in courts of kings and in words of prophecy, carried through times of ruin and hope. And so the life of the first Obadiah remains a mirror for every age. Not all are called to stand before crowds as Elijah did. Not all are given fire from heaven as a sign. Some are called to stand quietly in dangerous places, to keep faith alive when it seems nearly lost, to shelter what remains until the hour comes when truth must stand in the open. The hills of Carmel still rise above the sea, and the caves that once hid the prophets remain as silent witnesses to what was done there. Winds pass over them, carrying no names, yet the memory lingers of bread carried in secret, of water shared when water was life itself. And in that memory, Obadiah still walks, not as a figure of thunder, but as one of steady steps. and faithful hands whose courage was measured not by what the crowd saw, but by what the Lord knew. So the story rests, not with the clash of fire or the roar of rain, but with the quiet truth that even in the darkest halls of power, a servant may stand, unseen yet unbroken, waiting for the moment when hidden faith becomes part of a greater turning. And as the dust settles on these ancient paths, the heart is left to ponder how many such servants have walked the earth. Their names scarcely spoken, yet their faith woven into the great work that moves history forward. Step by faithful step, until the day when every hidden thing is brought into the light. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell. More Bible figures await.